Hello and welcome to Watch from Home Theater, our cozy little live stream where we get to watch movies together even while we are staying home. I'm Clint Gage, and tonight we're celebrating the 15th anniversary of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, with some very special guests. Before we get to that, we do have some clips that we'll be playing during the stream, but not the whole movie. So if you'd like to get synced up with us, take this opportunity to queue up your copy of Revenge of the Sith. If you own it digitally, queue it right up to the very beginning, or if you're on a Blu-ray or whatever, get past all that FBI warning just in front of the Fox logo, because that's where we're going to be starting. If you don't have a copy of the movie handy, you can sign up for a free 14-day trial of Disney Plus if you're not already a subscriber there, and sync up with us over there, which is because yay for free things. So there's a link in the description for that if you want to get set up that way. But while you guys go take care of all that, let's say hi to our very special guest tonight. First, IGN's own Max Scoville. Max, happy 15th birthday. No, that's not right.
Wow. Something like that. What are you introducing me first for? I'm not a special guest. Get me out of here.
Well, I meant to say a guest. Now, our special guest, no offense, the special guests also joining us, the voice of Ahsoka Tano, Ashley Eckstein, and Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order, Cameron. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
What's up?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to Watch from Home Theater. So, first question, obviously, we're here celebrating the 15th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. Today, 15 years ago, where were you guys 15 years ago today? Are you opening night type of people?
Well, so normally I am, opening night type of people. And let's see, episode 1 and episode 2, I was opening night. But at this point, 2005, I was just, I was engaged to my now husband, and he used to play baseball. And so obviously we were in the middle of the baseball season, and I didn't see it opening night. I know, a terrible fan. So okay. I watched it later.
I really, really cornered you with this opening question, didn't I?
I think I was opening weekend. I don't know if I was opening night, but I think that this might have been the first Star Wars that I saw opening weekend. I think I saw all the prequels in theaters. I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure, because I remember there were a lot of people milling about and there was a lot of excitement and people were still wearing costumes and stuff around the theater for this one.
Well, and if I can... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I can say, this is actually a big night in the Eckstein household. Here, David, I'm gonna introduce my husband for a second because he's sitting right off camera. But here, you can put this on. He was so straight.
Hey.
This is my husband, David. But so David, say hi to the gang here.
Hi, David.
Hey guys.
So he's never seen episode 3.
This will be my first time.
I know.
It's brave of you to out yourself like that.
I know. Thanks to that.
You guys have the matching. You guys have the matching shirts right now, and you look like the evil bobsled team from Cool Runnings. You know what I'm talking about?
I've seen that movie.
This does look like when they interview Olympians. Like you look like you just came off ice or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my doing.
She makes me wear it. Yeah.
I make dress in the matching suit. We are that. He's a good sport. We're that awkward couple that wears matching outfits to Disney.
I love that. I wish we all got one.
Yeah. So later when
we would be wearing it.
Later when I count us down to start the movie, I'll say Ein, Wein, Trein, and then we'll go.
I love it.
So anyways, I'll give a David report every now and then throughout the movie. Yeah. But it's his first time over here.
Yeah.
You'll have to let us know what the coolest part is.
Okay. Definitely.
And David, you're a Star Wars expert, correct?
What?
David is a Star Wars expert, right?
Oh, are you a Star Wars expert?
By no means.
We will be calling you regularly throughout the movie, quizzing you and making sure that you know everything that you're talking about. You're the resident Star Wars expert for this, actually.
Well, I've been around a lot of Star Wars royalty, and I've learned a lot through them, especially through all the series. no. I've sat through a lot of the record sessions early
Fair
on
enough.
and listened to Dave Filoni talk forever.
But I do have a funny story. So the very first convention I ever went to, this was back in 2008, and he went with me because his season had just ended, but he didn't know anything, like he didn't know much at all.
And I went to the movies to see episode 4, 5, and 6 and number 1. So like I was that guy, and then was into baseball after that. But
he spent the whole weekend like calling a lightsaber a lifesaver, and he called CP3O, and
yeah,
I didn't correct him. I was like, I wonder how.
What a bunch of polite people you must have been around.
Yeah, well, I was getting asked how many touchdowns that I've scored too at the convention, so it was going both ways.
That's good.
My favorite was the look that came over his face when somebody asked us over to their house afterwards for some live action role play, for some LARPing. They you want to come over and LARP? And he was just like he looked at me like, what are they asking me to do? Explain, what LARPing was afterwards.
Oh yeah.
So all right, well, we have a movie to watch.
Well, yeah, definitely. I'll be over here.
Your lifelong LARPing enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we'll check in with David throughout the night, and Max? What were you definitely opening night for you? Right?
So this is a weird one for me. This was the first Star Wars I saw opening night, midnight showing, because it came out when I was a senior in high school and was sort of able to go and do things on my own after hours. I was the second person in line at the movie theater in my town, and the first person in line was a grown man wearing full Jedi robes who the next day wrote a nice letter to the newspaper and was like, "There's so many nice young Star Wars fans in this town. This is very good." So I guess I made a good first impression there.
Nice, good.
But weirdly, it's also, I think it's one of the Star Wars movies I've seen the least, because it was sort of right when I was just on my way out to college and didn't have time to sit around rewatching movies constantly. Like, I don't think I ever had it on DVD, whereas I had episode 1, 2, and the original trilogy on VHS and would watch them every chance I got. And it was sort of like, and then the more recent ones, I was, marathoning them in theaters. But like Revenge of the Sith is weirdly like, I've seen it a bunch of times, but not quite as many as the other ones. So this will be somewhat fresh for me.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for this one too. Because it's I was actually working at Fox at the time. One of the first jobs I got here when I moved to LA, I was working on the Fox, and it was right when the movie came out, and they did a screening for the whole lot, like the Tuesday before it came. So I got to see it like 2 or 3 days early, which at the time, for like the first gig right out of college, in Hollywood, I got to watch Star Wars before anybody else right away, which was a real blast. So I've got a soft spot for Revenge of the Sith.
That's pretty cool.
So I didn't make it opening night because I had already seen it, and boy, did I let my friends know. So on that note, now that I'm the bad guy of the show, let's just get right into the movie. So if you're watching, wherever you're watching, be sure to this is your last chance to get synced up with us. Remember, we're starting right in front of the Fox fan. But also a reminder that wherever you're watching, just be down there in the comment section. We've got people watching the comment section for all of the different platforms that we're streaming on. So be sure to leave your questions and comments for Ashley and Cameron, and we'll get to as many of them as we can during the show. And also on Twitter with the hashtag WFH Theater. So with that, if everybody's ready to go, you got cursors hovering over play, hopefully. Let's start it in Ein, Wein, Trein, play.
3, 2, 1, play.
I did the Cool Runnings countdown. I promised I would. I had to. Ceremonial first question. Every episode of Watch from Home Theater we do. What's your favorite studio?
Ooh.
I'll go. Mine's Fox. I already outed myself as a Fox guy because I worked there for so long.
I think
But I
I
always
like the
thought it was
Columbia.
just the beginning of a Star Wars movie for a long time.
For
Or
me, it's got to be
actually-
Lucasfilm.
You know what? It's MGM. It's the lion.
The lion's a
The
good
roaring
one.
lion.
That's a
Because it's so loud and you have to lower your volume for it because it blasts out your speakers. Like you never know how loud the movie is gonna be, so you like a lot of times I'll just like put it up really loud. The MGM logo comes on. It's ridiculously loud, and then like I'm like, all right, well now I regret even putting this movie on. So that's what I love about a movie logo. Same with
All
the
the regret.
THX one. The classic THX, we're gonna blow out your sound system immediately. You know, I like one that really lets themselves be known. You know.
Yeah, a studio logo that really makes you wish you hadn't turned the movie.
Exactly.
Now, I thought you were asking specifically between Fox and Lucasfilm, but I have to say I'm a Disney girl. I grew up on Disney, and that just classic, just blue and white, castle logo is what I grew up on for sure.
I'm fond of the Orion Pictures one that we don't get so much anymore. Lets me know I'm watching something from, I don't know, when I was 3 years old or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that discussion took us all the way through the opening crawl there. What's that?
Oh, I thought we were just gonna do 2.5 hours on
2.5 hours of studio logos. Yeah.
I got a lot of material.
We'll cover that. We'll cover that after the show.
Alright.
I do appreciate that opening crawl that starts with just war and an exclamation.
I missed the opening crawl. Like, I love reading it. I can't believe I missed it.
Well, the cool thing about the opening crawl there is it includes their heroes on both sides, which is something that the Clone Wars, I think, did a really good job of sort of accentuating.
Yeah, for me, I'm actually really excited to watch the movie with you guys, because I haven't seen it since I've seen Siege of Mandalore. So I feel like I'm watching it with a completely different lens than I've watched it before. I mean, I know now what happens right before Anakin and Obi-Wan leave. Like, I know about that conversation with Anakin and Ahsoka and that reunion, and how he just presented her with all the clones. Let's see, Team Tano there. So yeah, it makes it all that much more emotional knowing what just happened behind the scenes.
Lock on to him, R2. Master, General Grievous's ship is directly ahead.
So that's the longest opening shot of any Star Wars movie post-credits or post-opening crawl. I think it's like a 76 seconds of just one continuous shot. This is like the most kick-ass opening to these movies. It kind of just hits you over the head with it.
It is, yeah. And it's one continuous sequence for the first 20-something minutes of the movie.
Just the technology. What so many people don't realize is, how advanced these movies were and all the technology that George Lucas created. I feel like he doesn't, get enough credit at times for, how much he just paved the way in terms of technology. It's just mind-blowing.
Have you been over to, I'm sure you have, to the Skywalker Ranch and the ILM offices and all of that? Yeah,
you've probably been, given more of a tour of ILM than I have, but it's amazing.
It's incredible. Like the amount of technology that they used, and obviously at the time of film was really amazing, and the miniatures and the motion control cameras that they used and the way that they processed the film and layer it on top of each other is really incredible. And it was like mind-blowing to think that for the original trilogy, that's something that they did throughout the early 80s. It's unbelievable. And the amount of stuff that ILM also worked on is just unbelievable. And they have like little miniatures from like from Jurassic Park and Close Encounters and like all this stuff. And it's amazing to see these beautiful matte paintings and stuff. Like they still are just top of their field in technology, and not only visually but also sound as well. I mean, Skywalker sound is just, it's next level.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
What I think is crazy is we, like, the prequels got so much sort of bad rep for being either entirely CG or being entirely in front of a green screen, when in reality it was a lot of the time it was like miniatures for the backgrounds or like actual footage that had actors comped onto it, And now with what they're doing with the Mandalorian, they're filming in front of an actual, panoramic video wall.
Right.
And it's cutting out the middleman with having to add that in post. And it's the backgrounds are running in the same engine as your game, Cameron.
Right, they're using Unreal, right? It's like real time rendering. Yeah,
which is the right word for that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Get to the command ship. Get the Chancellor. I'm running out of tricks here.
So my confession is I haven't seen this movie in years. So this will be a complete refresher for me. I went back and I watched the original trilogy and the other 2 prequel movies the past few days to kind of refresh myself. But I haven't watched Revenge of the Sith in quite a while, so I'll be watching along with everybody here.
Yeah, Cameron, same here. I mean, it's been probably at least a year or 2 since I've seen it. Especially, I haven't had the complete background of. So, forgive me if I get emotional at times, knowing what happened.
Right, knowing what Ahsoka is doing on Mandalore right now.
Yeah.
That's what's like so much fun about Star Wars is how it just adds on layers and layers of different new pieces of media that recontextualize what's already there. I mean, ever since Empire was like, surprise, I'm your dad. Now it's like, we're getting Jedi Fallen Order that comes after this, and we're getting Clone Wars that butts up right against it, and it's like it gives you a reason to go back and rewatch these old movies.
Definitely. I just got to give a little bit of love to R2-D2 right now too. My favorite character in Star Wars is actually R2-D2. So any scene with R2 in it just is automatically a favorite scene of mine.
He's honestly the real MVP of the entire Skywalker saga, isn't he?
I think so. I call him my hero because he is. He's always there to save the day.
He gets pretty violent in this one. He gets kind of bloodthirsty in that droid way.
It's definitely the sassiest of all Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
I would go R2-D2 then Han Solo, but I think R2 is just a little bit sassier. It's just we can't always understand what he's saying.
He's just swearing constantly.
Yeah, it would be R-rated if we could.
Yeah, there's got to be a version of this somewhere where somebody's subtitled R2 with just the most foul language.
Filthy.
I would love to speak droid.
Yeah, I do. I am always jealous of and it was the same thing with Han and Chewie of just, it's like, yeah, you understand what he's saying and you just speak back to him in your language. That's good enough. You guys can communicate that way. There's something so intimate about that.
Got to give a big shout out right now to Matthew Wood, voice of General Grievous. He just blows my mind. I mean, such a talented, obviously, voice actor, but then just a prodigy in sound. I mean, what he does, it's Skywalker sound, and what he's done for the sound of these Star Wars films is just insane.
I love how much people in the sound department get to sort of insert themselves into the movies. I think it's Ben Burtt who does the voice of half the battle droids too, right? He just modulated it a whole bunch to sound more robotic.
Yeah, I think so.
I know that Grievous coughing is that's George Lucas coughing. He had a really bad cold on set, and somebody just hit record, and they just were like, "Yeah, you get to be Grievous's, Grievous's phlegm."
I do love a lot of the stories because you hear some things where they had a plan and then they show up on the day, and then Lucas would just change stuff. There was a whole lightsaber duel in Attack of the Clones where the Yoda wasn't supposed to be in, and he was like, you know what, Yoda ought to. So him coughing and everybody else being like, yeah, that should be Grievous. That tracks sort of how collaborative these things are.
Wasn't that final showdown in Phantom Menace with Qui-Gon and Darth Maul? Wasn't that a lot of it came up with by Ray Park and the stunt team and stuff, and it was kind of something that like it was way shorter, and it was later kind of decided on the day. I remember hearing about that. I don't know. I'm going through grapevine, so let me just sell a bunch of misinformation that I heard. But
Yeah,
I
that's how we do
swear,
most of our research. It's fine.
Right.
Yes, this is a very professional operation we have here.
Wait,
This scene is like
hearing this. It'll be-
this whole part with like R2 getting like carjacked and then basically just like messing stuff up with the elevators and then proceeding to just completely wreck shop is like, oh my. Look at this.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
This is like, it's shot a little differently, especially between the other prequels too. Is like just the angle that they're covering R2 flying. Like this shot is like there's not another shot like that in the entirety of Star Wars. But
I totally forgot about this.
Bloodthirsty R2, oil thirsty maybe.
Oh my gosh, yeah. R2's extra sassy in this movie.
Let's say, and coming up here, real
You know,
quickly,
going back to what
I
you were
would
saying
like to-
about. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Going back to what you were saying about George Lucas changing things. I mean, I feel like that happens a lot just on set. But that did happen to us. And in animation, it's a much bigger process because there's storyboards and rendering and several steps. But he changed his mind on something like a week before we recorded. And so Dave Filoni and the team had to completely rewrite an arc. And he was right to change it. But it was very much like a last minute thing. But of course, if it comes from George Lucas, it's like, well, of course we have to change it.
I would like to talk about Christopher Lee here and how incredible he is.
Yep.
Like his line coming up, when he says, "I've been looking forward to this," is so good.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love Christopher Lee.
Good. Twice the price.
I think
There's
what I
another
also love about him too is how much that he was enjoying this stuff. Like, have you ever heard about the stories about him of how much he wanted to be a wizard, and he would send pictures of himself because he wanted to be Gandalf. So he would send images of himself dressed in a wizard's robe to Peter Jackson as basically auditioning for the role. And it's like it was something that was like very important to him, was to be able to be like a powerful wizard. And eventually he managed to do it, and plus he was in Star Wars as essentially a space wizard as well, which I feel like all of this stuff he was probably reveling in that moment.
We did a series of interviews with some of the stunt coordinators and things like that for these called Breaking Down the Duel, and talking about Christopher Lee on set. Like he's apparently quite an accomplished swordsman, and
Really?
he did a lot of this himself. So.
He also has a metal band.
Oh, yeah. He's got like a crazy metal band, and he's a World War II badass. He was like a spy, and like he was like record. Supposedly, it was like he did a lot of stuff, and he was like, there's like all these stories. I like read this amazing bio about him a few months ago, and that guy just lived a life, an absolute life.
And he was a Bond villain.
Yes.
He's the man with the
And
golden gun.
And now he's about to lose his head.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Oh!
Too bad.
Oh man.
Again.
Here's coming on the heels of that lightsaber duel there, which was pretty. Johnny Freeze is out there watching. He's asked to both of you, Cameron and Ashley, what are your favorite lightsaber fights from Star Wars?
It wasn't the first time, Anakin. Remember what you told
Cameron,
me.
you got
Any of them.
first? I will say I have a new favorite. After seeing Ahsoka and Darth Maul fight in the Siege of Mandalore, that was mind blowing. And I'm saying that more from the aspect of even what Ray Park was able to do, because they did it in mocap and then they animated it. So, and it was Lauren. Oh my gosh, forgive me. I don't remember her last name, but her first name is Lauren. She did the mocap for Ahsoka, and it's just mind blowing. I mean, they did it on the roof on these like really thin rails and this epic lightsaber battle. And shout out to everyone who animated it, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
I think for me, it just has to be the classic throne room fight from Return of the Jedi. You know, between Luke and Darth Vader. There's just such palpable tension in that scene, and I feel like you could just show those 10 minutes and you would know everything you need to know about Star Wars. You would be able to understand the themes, the conflicts, everything, the passion, the family aspects, like what it is that makes it feel the way it is. Like, it's so perfectly encapsulated within that scene that that's like, also it's just, I have such a fondness of that from being a kid, and that was the scene I would watch over and over, when I was younger.
What about you guys?
R2 might also be indestructible.
That's true.
Which is why I like him.
No, I'm with Cameron on the lightsaber duel. I think that just the throne room scene is so perfect. I'm also like, I'm a little bit butthurt that we didn't get more of that green lightsaber. You know, like, it's just, I just want more. I really appreciate the amount of neon green in like Grievous's control room. I think that's just spices things up a bit. There's a lot of like red and blue in Star Wars, but like, some good neon green in there. Just really just add some flair.
It's underused for sure.
Also, can we talk about Star Wars fashion for a second? I was just thinking, like, when I'm old, I kind of want to dress like Dooku. Like, he's got the riding boots, he's got this like tunic and like a short cape with this very tasteful chain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good outfit.
Real good look.
So I have to say I had the chance to tour the archives over this past year and see all of the original costumes from not only the original trilogy but the prequel trilogy, and especially in the prequel trilogy, they did not skimp at all on details. I mean, the level of these costumes, I mean, they were so well made, very expensive. I mean, especially once we get to some of Padme's costumes. I mean, these are couture on every level. You want to talk about hand beating, custom dyed. Even the guys' costumes, the robes, like, it's the best fabric. Just very, very well made. Gorgeous.
I think the biggest issue with the prequel costumes is a byproduct of 90s fashion. And if you look at like the Jedi tunics in Attack of the Clones, they're very baggy. Like, they're very much like what was fashionable in menswear at the time, which is, it'll come back around again. I don't know. Compared to like Luke's like beautiful sort of like art school tunic he shows up in Return of the Jedi, which is just clean lines, like a Versace suit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Padme definitely is like a fashion show in and of herself for the prequels, like between the hair, the makeup, and the designs for the costumes. And also, I love all of those the royal rooms that she's within as well. Like, there's some like really cool like 70s contemporary like design in a lot of the areas, and like they're like purple and red and weird colors like that, and like there's a lot of really cool kind of throwback stuff that they do with the architecture and set design and costuming as well. But as for the Jedis, they have lots of robes and they look very comfortable. I feel like Jedis are some of the most comfortable heroes in the world, because they just have like lots of like soft cottons and wools and flowy robes.
Do you think they captured Palpatine when he was like hanging around the house? Because that looks like leisure clothing.
It's very fuzzy. I just want to like rub my hand on it and see like what it is.
Is that just a Snuggie? Like, what is it?
I'm trying to
wearing a blanket.
I'm trying to remember, because I did see that costume in person, And I mean, I think I remember it looking very comfortable. It was like a nice, cozy robe.
If you're the most powerful man in the universe, you can be comfortable.
You don't need to dress up for anybody at that point.
Yeah, who are you going to impress? You can just
Cameron,
force choke someone or lightning them if they don't like it.
Cameron, we can also need to ask you about poncho fashion. Where do we wear ponchos? Ponchos or robes?
Ponchos over robes.
We'll transition straight from studio logos into poncho.
It's layering, all right? You got to go with an oversized poncho to go over your oversized tunic to then complement your undersized undershirt. So you got to have something tight underneath to kind of show what's going on, but then loose on top of it, and then even looser on top of that. You want to be very hot when you're in the desert, as they most usually are. You want to just be very warm and overheating.
So a poncho is like a robe for people who have places to be.
I like that. I like that. I will say though, now the women got better over time. I do have to give Dave Filoni a shout out there because it was very important for him to give, I can only speak to Ahsoka, but to give Ahsoka something that she would fight in that was appropriate, because I can't say that a tube top was the most appropriate form of attire to fight the Clone Wars in. But, I find it funny all the guys have these, covering robes and boots and, armor, and then some of the female characters are not quite prepared for war. It's gotten better over time.
So this is the first Star Wars movie where you see the fire department. They get fire truck spaceships come out here. I love it.
We talked about it a little bit. One more time.
Do we know if Jedis wear underwear? Do they have Jedi specific garments? Are they like the long johns? Are they like a loincloth? So do we know what's going on? Has that ever been covered in any sort of extended fiction? I feel like we should all know this for reasons.
I mean, Star Wars being around for 40 some odd years, you'd think that they would have covered it at some point. Somewhere, somebody's got to have covered that.
Well, have something to pitch to Dave Filoni.
I forgot to ask that when I saw the costumes, if they had appropriate undergarments that match with the costumes. I will ask, just for you, Cameron.
Also, they've got to stink, because no one ever takes a shower in Star Wars. They're on the mission the whole time, running around, going through swamps, bugs, everything. I've never seen a shower. Who knows what's going on? It's probably a smelly universe.
No, that's a good thing to get brought up, because I think the other thing is just hygiene in Star Wars in general is nobody really talks about bathroom stuff. We see trash compactors and stinky sewage tunnels, but then first episode of The Mandalorian, they were like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Star Wars toilets. This guy's going to talk about evacuating, and it's going to be a whole weird thing. But no, maybe we'll finally get to the bottom of it. What's underneath those robes? What are they doing?
That's the thing Star Wars has always been missing: bathrooms.
And
so there was one of those iconic Star Wars wipes. Took us to, it's about the 23 minutes, and that was the opening sequence of the movie.
Wow.
23 minutes from start to finish, starting with that long, following their ships around all the way through crash landing half of a cruise. About 23 minutes.
Wow.
Evocative of the original trilogy, the third installment, and that Return of the Jedi. That opening sequence of breaking out Han from the prison, dealing with Jabba, the Land Cruiser, all that till it explodes is also 25 minutes of action straight. And honestly, even Empire Strikes Back, there's the whole Hoth sequence that is also pretty explosive. I feel like that's something that Star Wars is very good at, is having an opening that punches you right in the face and kind of sets the stakes really quickly, and then you start going back into more of the character stuff. But having like a strong opening hook is something I think that they just do really well.
Supposedly there's a 4-hour cut of this, or there was at one point a 4-hour cut that was the entire rescue of Palpatine was like over an hour long, which is crazy to think about. I feel like people would have totally watched a 4-hour Star Wars movie, especially, you know, hot on the tails of Lord of the Rings.
No, I would have been there 3 days before it opened on the Fox lot, watching it for 4 hours.
I like this hairstyle of Padme. Obviously very reminiscent of Princess Leia.
Like slightly more subdued.
Yeah.
Buns. They have like a bantha thing going on. Kind of like bantha-esque.
Like the orange there.
This movie, speaking of the opening sequence and you know, even now, it's just gorgeous. I forget how beautiful this movie is.
We can pull another question here. This one is coming from Jose de Jesus Delgado, who's watching on Cinefic. Questions for Ashley. What do you think Ahsoka would have said to Anakin if she would have had the chance prior to facing Darth Maul? Do you think she could have prevented some of this chaos?
It's a great question. You know, obviously we see in Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka wants to talk to Anakin. But, you know, she kind of refuses to tell Obi-Wan and, you know, Master Yoda. And, you know, clearly that shows her trust level. You know, she just doesn't trust anyone anymore. She doesn't trust anyone except Anakin. You know, obviously there's so much just Ahsoka doesn't know, but I do think, and this is just my opinion, but I do think Ahsoka, you know, would think that she could have helped, that she could have stopped him, that she could have maybe helped saved him. And you know, obviously would have a lot of regret there. And just, that's just my opinion. But they never get that moment.
Never get them. Just a sad moment with a lightsaber at the very end for Anakin.
Yeah.
I love how much Grievous is just like he's like a silent film villain. Like he practically has a mustache and a top hat. Like he's hunched over with this cape, cackling, breaking stuff. It's great.
Yeah, the caped half a robot look is scary for sure.
I forget how like well he moves. He's a lot faster than I remember him.
Especially when he starts like scuttling around on little pincers.
Yeah.
He's a creepy dude.
Oh, he's really creepy.
Here's another question. So we're talking about Grievous as a villain here. This is for Cameron from Brock Peters, who's watching on YouTube, IGN's YouTube channel. What villain, if any, from Star Wars would you want Cal Kestis to?
Ooh.
Any villain.
Cal to fight any villain. I want him to fight anybody. I want him to be safe. Cal's my man, you know. I want to look after him. I want to protect him. I wouldn't want to wish that on him. That's an awful thing. Come on, man. What are you doing? I don't know. I mean, there's one big one that he does fight at the end of the game, which, if you guys have played it, you'll know. And to be honest, that was kind of a dream. So I think what we got is already pretty cool.
Nothing would.
I mean, that's a pretty big one, you know. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played it, but also, come on, guys, play the game.
I think you should fight Sebulba. He just goes to
Sebulba.
Tatooine and just just beats the crap out of Sebulba for no reason.
Just like, Sebulba, Watto, all those guys.
Watto would be, Watto's like fixing a car radio or whatever, and just Cal's like, we need to talk.
I would actually love if Cal beat him in gambling.
That would be
just
fun.
Had like a gamble off against each other, and he ends up like taking everything from Watto. Because don't you see him later, and he's like destitute, so he lost everything. So there you go. I don't think the timeline works out.
I never know, like, actually whether or not he's supposed. Like, you see in episode 2, and like, I don't know if he's supposed to be poor or not because he has a new hat.
Right, he's got a new hat, and he's on the street curb. So I assume but he might just have gotten older and had a change in fashion choice.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He might have just been like outside, like, hanging out. I don't know.
We also don't really know the lifespan of the
time
species, so there's a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of variables here. But this has been Watto Talk with IGN, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
I would say this dress that Padme's wearing, or nightgown, I guess I should say. I did get to see this one in person, and it's amazing. Like the detail of the pearls, Jada, it's not the embroidery, but just the stitching and the dress right there. The level that Trisha Bigger and her team went to for all of these costumes is it's mind blowing. I highly recommend, because they have exhibits that travel the world where you can go see the costumes. If you get the chance, go see these costumes up close. It's incredible.
There's a beautiful book that they put out about it. I think Chronicle published it, and it's just called Star Wars Costumes. It came out probably 4 or 5 years ago. And they only made one for the original trilogy, but it's like, I read the whole thing cover to cover. It's phenomenal. It has like beautiful archival photos, but they haven't done one for the prequels yet, which I'm dying to see because, like you said, you've got all these amazing, like, Padme dresses and Emperor Palpatine Snuggie and all that.
I won't let this one become real.
Palpatine. We'll have to do Palpatine wardrobe watch because it gets progressively nuttier throughout this whole movie in a really cool.
By the end of this, he looks like he's in Dune. Like, he's starting to really.
Yeah, he's either in Dune or he's one of the Nazis at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark during the ceremony.
Oh yeah.
I have to say, I really like Anakin and Padme's chemistry in this movie. I feel it a lot more than I did in the previous films.
So this is a scene here, this conversation with Yoda, which it seems a little like therapy, but they're just talking about this dream that he had. This is one of the scenes in this movie that I think really plays a lot better in the context of the Clone Wars, like knowing what Anakin's been up to the last couple of years and knowing what else is on his mind here. Like it gives this scene more weight.
These visions come true, Master Yoda.
Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force.
This really does look like therapy.
Yeah. It's nice and low light, comfortable chairs. It's probably some
very
incense burning.
Intimidating lighting. It looks like a 1940s noir interrogation.
It's a cool kind of they're not really revealing everything that they know to each other, sort of with just sort of the slashes of light. And
David watch. David
how's
really
David doing?
Yeah, David's doing good. He really liked that scene with Yoda. The train yourself. What was it? Train yourself. The fear of losing. You have to train yourself to let go of. Yeah.
The Senate is expected.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
He was really getting a lot out of Yoda's advice.
It got all of us to be quiet and listen there for a minute. Here's another question. This was for Cameron. From a user name Luke's Professional Hand on Twitter wants to know, do you think Cal would ever turn to the dark side? If yes, love your work as always.
I mean, I think that there's a temptation within every Jedi, and I think there's an inherent darkness to the universe and to these stories, and Cal specifically has experienced a fair amount of trauma from a young age, and he flirts with it in Fallen Order. I think that there are moments where you see him flirting with the dark side, and I'm sure, if we follow Cal more, he'll receive other temptations as well, as the nature of these stories they tend to, and whether or not he would succumb to them, just have to find out.
I'm overwhelmed, sir.
I like that his sconces look exactly like the Trade Federation, like battle droid ships from the Phantom Menace. Like they look like bad guy spaceships just on his wall.
Yeah, who would guess that he's evil by looking at this room?
Yeah.
I do like
So I believe
the Dissolve game has changed a little bit from A New Hope all the way to the Revenge for George Lucas. Like
this has the most wipes of any of the movies, right?
I know, and they're not just like a circle wipe or an iris wipe or anything. Weird shutter patterns, and I dig it.
What?
It's just like Yoda's head spinning and da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Forgive me, master.
When Obi-Wan's disappointed, you gotta listen.
Windu did not look happy with them.
No. Mace Windu, I mean, he gave Ahsoka some attitude in Clone Wars, too. Mace Windu is not messing around.
Critical to send an attack group there immediately.
He's right. It's a system we cannot afford to lose.
Go, I will.
Here's another question from Sweet Lizzie Blue is the username. No, I'm sorry, I read the wrong one. Here, this was from Casey. Question for Ashley: what was your favorite part of growing Ahsoka as a character?
Put me on the council and not make me a master.
That's a great question. I mean, I think my favorite part of growing Ahsoka, maybe this isn't directly answering it, but it's as Ahsoka grew over the years, kind of having an entire generation of Star Wars fans grow with her, was really cool to watch. I've been in the Star Wars universe since 2008, and literally I've watched kids grow up, and to see how, Ahsoka was kind of like the eyes of the audience in Clone Wars, and fans got to experience the Clone Wars through her eyes and learn some of the same lessons, through her, and to watch the fans in the audience grow with her, and myself included. I very much feel like I grew up with Ahsoka. That's been really cool. That's probably my favorite part, because I see the positive impact she's had on people's lives. I mean, she's changed lives and saved lives, I say, and it's true. I mean, I probably get at least one story a day about how, and many more, about how she's impacted people's lives, and that's been really, really cool to see how people are translating her stories into their own lives, and how it affects, everyday decisions.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask you guys about too, is that because there are, 40 whatever years worth of Star Wars stories out there, there are so many different like entries into the franchise, right? Like there's the generation that grew up with the original trilogy. There's a generation that grew up with the prequel trilogy, and and obviously Clone Wars, like you were just talking about, people literally growing up with it, you know, and gamers finding a way into it through games like Fallen Order. I mean, you talk about it being a rewarding experience, being like somebody's way into this big world.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you look at it, the way that kind of it's been timed, it's almost like there's a new set of stories for every new generation. So the original trilogy, you know, fans, once they were old enough and had kids, then the prequel trilogy came, and then now the prequel trilogy kids are old enough and they have their kids, and now we have you know, the new trilogy, or you know, Clone Wars too. You know, it's just every new set of stories has its own new generation, and there's fans that of the newest trilogy that haven't seen, you know, the previous films. Or, you know, Clone Wars might have been their first entry into Star Wars, or, you know, gaming, you know, is their first entry into Star Wars. So it's really cool to see, you know, just new generations come into Star Wars. And I think there's not any right way. I think as long as you come in through some sort of story, it's just kind of like, hey, welcome to the universe, and look at all the other stories you have to enjoy.
I think it's like I think it's a good philosophy when like whatever thing you're making, be it a TV show or a series of movies or even a podcast or something like that, each new edition you should just assume will be someone's first. It will be their first experience with it and their first kind of introduction to what it is. And you always have to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and telling something that feels not only part of a larger universe, but also self-contained, because for a lot of people, this will be their first taste of whatever this is. And yeah, you know, I think that it's amazing for people to be able to have a point of access and introduced from a lot of different means. I have this like single beam of light going around my chest and it's driving me crazy.
I was trying to warn you about that.
All right, I'll be right back.
You got tiny windows in your place, man.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. The whole point of entry thing to Star Wars, because part of me is like, yeah, I grew up with the original trilogy. When I stop and think about it, like I played Dark Forces at a babysitter's house before I'd seen all three movies, and you know, I watched the movies in bits and pieces on TV, so there was always like this weird, and then at the end of the day, like the movies are like episode 4, 5, and 6, like you're missing out on something larger, and so. You know, they're really, like I said, there's no real right way to go about it. It's sort of, you know, look at it from different angles, from a certain point of view.
Ah.
Aha.
So here we have the story of Darth Plagueis at the Star Wars Cirque du Soleil show here.
I believe it's referred to as Squid Lake was the nickname given by the behind the scenes people.
It's a good one. I do find these bubbles fascinating. I get it. I would be at a show like this.
Yeah. You could overcharge for that at Las Vegas, and I would.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure I understand.
It'd be I end up in a seat in the back row, and it's just everybody getting up to get drunk the entire run of the show.
Speaking of drinks, so I have my Darth Vader mug here.
Nice.
Right.
The handle is his lightsaber.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can get these on the Disney Cruise Line when they have a movie theater there, and so you can get your Coke delivered during Star Wars Day at Sea in a Darth Vader mug.
I have a Greedo Tiki mug here.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was part of a 2-pack with Han. But Han in Tiki form just kind of looks like just a weird wooden chiseled man, whereas Greedo is a little bit more identifiable.
Oh, yeah.
They asked you to spy on me, didn't they?
It's interesting here too, and this is another thing that I think like the Clone Wars really helped with it, and the whole notion of the Jedi doing something shady, like asking Anakin to spy sort of a crack in the veneer of the Jedi for this movie. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and especially that scene, where Ahsoka calls him out and says, he's really close, to Palpatine. Like, I can't believe you would ask him to do that. I think, Ahsoka comes back completely changed, and she's not afraid to call it what it is or how she sees it.
Still doing mug show and tell?
Yeah.
Nice. I got my Endor tiki mug that I got from Galaxy's Edge.
I love it.
It's got little Ewoks on it and ATST, and it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's cool. Where did you get that? Was that at Doc Ondar's?
I got it at the cantina. You can there's 2 drinks. I can't remember which ones. There's 2 drinks that you can get the mug that comes with it.
Oh, cool. Okay. See, I can't get past the Bantha cookies. Did you guys try the Bantha cookies in the cantina?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. It's totally the best snack on Batuu. It's like the most underrated, the snack that they have. You apparently, like, you're supposed to get it with the chilled blue milk. But, like, the underground secret menu is that you can buy the cookies by themselves, and they're so good. It's a shortbread cookie topped with, like, a Samoa with a ring of icing, and it's amazing.
This has been Galaxy's Edge Snack Watch with Ashley Eckstein.
Important things.
Yeah.
I think we're all comfortable here, so I'm just gonna take care of this. There we go. There we go.
The first one, you pour one out.
There we go.
For the
there we go. Nice. Now we're watching Star Wars.
Now we're doing it. I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't have any Star Wars related anything to drink out of right now. I suppose I could turn this Boba Fett helmet.
There will be someone from Lucasfilm who is watching this who will send you something right now.
I get a knock on my door here in a minute. Like, I heard you needed a mug.
I have a lot of Star Wars glassware, but not like any. I don't have any just regular mugs. For some reason, all my mugs are like anime themed. I don't know why.
We gotta fix that, Max.
Yeah, I need more mugs. I used to have a Boba Fett mug. I don't know. I think that's at work actually.
I love how we've made our own version of the cantina.
Yeah.
Here, watch from home.
Social distance cantina. Hopefully no one.
Wretched live stream of skill and villainy.
We also missed the big meme scene of the story of Darth Sidious the Wise, or
Plagueis,
what is it? Darth Plagueis. Yeah, sorry.
Plagueis.
Yeah, where he says, you can keep someone alive, and that might be considered unnatural. Which little callback to Anakin said that he wanted to keep people alive after his mother died. Nice little bit of callback, like a little bit of foreshadowing there.
I also like that it just establishes, like, how evil is Palpatine? Oh, he will just talk your ear off through Cirque du Soleil.
That's the worst.
That is frowned upon.
Man, I'm trying to watch this.
Do we have any? There's a lot of theories about Darth Plagueis and sort of what exactly that story was meant to do. Do you guys have any personal favorites about who Darth Plagueis really was?
I like the theory that it's Jar Jar.
Got it.
I think that's a solid one. Evil Jar Jar, possibly Darth Plagueis. Sure, I'll go with it.
You also mentioned that we missed out on the meme. We've had a few questions. Few people asked that question in some of the comments. You guys have any favorite Star Wars memes?
Oh,
I think all of the really horribly mistranslated subtitles from Revenge of the Sith are really good. Like, that's where "do not want" came from instead of "no."
You know what's so sad is like I probably look at least one Star Wars meme a day, and of course, right now I'm completely blanking.
There's too many of them. Too many.
I know.
Was do not want from this one?
I think so.
So should we all do a do not want when we get to that point?
We do that.
We should for sure do that.
All right, cool. I'm a fan of McClunky.
McClunky's a good one.
I like it. It's a new one, but I'm a fan of it.
Well,
that's such a bizarre addition.
It really is. And finding all those new bizarre additions is also like a game unto it.
It will not be long before the Council makes you a Jedi Master.
I think Obi-Wan is my favorite through the prequel movies, just because he starts out like he's so happy. He's like, Master, we're gonna go do Jedi stuff, and it's like, oh no, gas, and then it's like everything goes downhill, and it's like you invited the frog to come with it. Okay, there's a little boy here now, and then you get to hear it. He's just so tired. He's so sick of all of this, and he's channeling Sir Alec Guinness. So it's just Ewan McGregor.
He really got thrust into a bad situation by Qui-Gon. Like,
hey, Cameron, I hate to cut you off here, but I think your volume went down on us a little bit.
There we go. Is this better?
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Is this better? There we go.
Mm-hmm. That's the one.
Okay.
The burden is on me not to destroy all the droids until you arrive.
I will say I'm excited for an Obi-Wan. I mean, I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. Also, shout out to my great friend James Arnold Taylor and his portrayal of Obi-Wan for all these years. But love Obi-Wan as a character, and I'm just excited for more of him.
Save your energy.
And that's the great thing about Ewan McGregor in the prequels is he seems to just be having a. Like, he seems so thoroughly engaged and having fun with being Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I think that's the thing, and Cameron, now that you're a part of the universe, what I love about Star Wars is everyone genuinely is just so excited to be there. If you get to play a character in Star Wars, it feels like you've won the lottery, and you're just like, it's such a privilege that every day, showing up to anything, work or, whether it be like a convention, it's just, everyone's just excited to be there. It's pure excitement.
I also have to agree with everyone on Ewan's performance. Not only in this, but across all the prequel movies. I think that he's so phenomenal in his characterization and getting just enough of Alec Guinness for this, and also it's just a very clear character arc of what they do with him. I feel like that this is kind of, it's the emotional part, the relationship that losing his master, and then the relationship that he has with Anakin throughout these movies, that for me really personally resonates with me, and I think it's why Revenge of the Sith is my favorite of the prequel movies, is because of Ewan McGregor and that dynamic.
I will say I did think of, it's not necessarily a meme because I don't remember what it says, but I love the call outs for Anakin's mullet. I mean, Anakin's mullet in this movie, it's great.
That was like, yeah, he's a bad boy. He's a little bit tough now.
And honestly, it's very quarantine hair. Like, it's just the right kind of unkempt and overdue for a haircut. I feel like I could probably sort out a little bit of Anakin if I wanted to.
Okay, so can we nerd out about Tion Medon here? The guy he's played by Bruce Spence, who also played the Mouth of Sauron in Lord of the Rings. He played both the gyrocopter pilot in Road Warrior and he always plays just this weird guy with like kind of scary teeth, and then in this one they're like, let's give him a corduroy face, and it's just
like, he's creepy looking, and that costume's incredible too.
Was this
And like,
after?
I'm gonna talk to you like I
Lord
might
of the Rings?
bite you in a second.
Was this after Lord of the Rings?
Yes. Yeah.
So they were like, "That is a scary mouth. We need to get another scary mouth and put it on him."
And he was also in the Matrix, I think. So he's been in some big trilogies there, and he's not really immediately recognizable, but
well, because he's always under all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think somebody pointed out in Attack of the Clones, in the background, there is not only like the guy who tries to sell Obi-Wan death sticks is Mouse from the Matrix, and the girl in the red dress is seen in the background, and it's because they were both filming on on similar sound stages, because they were both shooting those in Australia at the same time. There's that lizard. What a cutie.
It's a good lizard too.
I will say, going back to what you're saying, it's one of my favorite things is when you film on a sound stage. You know, it can be so random, whatever is filming next to you. I once did a TV show called Blue Collar TV, and in the soundstage next to us, they were doing reshoots for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were literally right next to us. And Larry the Cable Guy was a part of our show, and he became friends with Brad Pitt. So he just walked next door in a trailer and was like, "Hey, we're filming Blue Collar TV. Will you do a guest star on our show?" And he said yes. So we have somewhere in one of our episodes this sketch, and Brad Pitt's in it, and it's the most random thing that like Brad Pitt is just randomly in a sketch. And it's purely because they were filming right next to us, and Larry the Cable Guy asked him to.
That is amazing.
You never know.
Didn't he also do the weather for an Australian news channel for a while? He was just like the weather guy.
Really?
Yeah. You can find footage of him. He just wanted to be a weatherman, so he went and was like the weather guy on this.
I gotta see that.
It's a Google away.
I've seen some stuff like that before of people that are like on a publicity tour for something, and they just happen to be in a studio and they wander in and they do the weather. I think like Will Ferrell did it a couple of times. Seems like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
I was shooting a movie years ago on Pinewood in Pinewood in London. And it was at the time when they were building the sets for The Force Awakens, and it was on one of the stages nearby, and we would all during lunch try to sneak over and like see if like we could see anything through like the tarps and that kind of stuff that was like getting like put into the stage. And we were like, we would be asking the guys like, "Hey man, like anything you can tell us, like anything, you know, give us a little drop of a hint, you know, just blink twice if C-3PO's in this, just, you know, something." Nah, they didn't give us anything though.
They didn't give anything.
Yeah.
This fight with Grievous I like because like, you know, the Phantom Menace you added the double lightsaber into the and then all the way building up to here to having a guy with 4 arms and lightsaber. It's like, how do you keep one-upping these lightsaber duels?
That part where he's like spinning just really fast, it reminds me of that scene in The Simpsons where like Bart and Lisa are like spinning their arms and kicking and just walking towards each other. It's like, if you get hit, it's your fault.
I'm just going to walk straight forward with these 4 lightsabers, and if they hit you, it's your fault.
I also have to say to all the cosplayers out there that cosplay as General Grievous, I mean, it's amazing. Some of the General Grievous costumes I've seen, how they actually pull it off is just mind-blowing. It's really creepy to see a General Grievous cosplay like walking towards you.
I don't think so.
That's a big job to take on. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna do a General Grievous cosplay, you better be able to really and to do this creepy spider.
Oh, that is just General Grievous is one. Yeah, he's one villain I have a hard time watching just because of how creepy he is. Yeah, Matthew Wood is one of the nicest guys.
The villain thing he does, where he's just like and he scampers off like a spider, and then gets in like a saw blade with legs. Like everything about him is like evil and scary on some level. This scene rules. This is so good.
Yeah, I'm just watching the movie right now.
Right. There's always a moment every episode of this that we do. There's always a couple of moments where everybody just kind of starts watching the movie.
Well, and this is weird for me because this is the first time I've actually watched a movie live, with a group of people. And I'm not usually a talker in the middle of the movie. So sometimes I'm finding it's like you get lost in watching it and you're like, oh, wait.
I do like these lingering shots here, like that shot of Mace Windu, where it's like, something's wrong.
I like how everyone is zooming in on this meeting, too. Like, this is great. This is
right? Like, nobody's showing up to work anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, in the movie. They're having a Zoom conference right now.
When are we gonna get Hollow Zoom?
This is the scene that actually Ahsoka comes in on.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, technically it's like she really was there. She was on the other side of that Zoom.
She was in the room while somebody was hollow zooming.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look closely, you can see that Palpatine's clothes have gotten more evil, obviously.
Oh,
there's that really deep crimson.
Okay, so I saw this costume. This costume is, again, I feel like I keep using the word mind blowing, but that fabric it looks, I can't think of the word, but it's ruched. That fabric, it has texture. It's like 3D. I'm not sounding very technical right now. Forgive me, but it is. It's poofy.
That's the word I was going to use. Poofy.
Yeah, but it's truly like a piece of art.
No, he looks like he looks like royalty there, which is cause for alarm because he's supposed to be an elected official.
Yeah.
How do you know the ways of the Force? My mentor taught
We actually tried to figure out how to design something for her universe inspired by Palpatine's costume there. And we ended up not doing it, but we fell in love with this costume so much. We're like, how do we turn that into a piece of wearable fashion that you would wear every day?
The short answer is you don't, I guess.
Yeah, no, you don't, without doing it justice.
Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi.
So this is where he's just like, yep, I'm evil.
Yeah, I just got goosebumps from this scene.
Oh, that's my. There's a few people have raised this question. Wanted to ask you guys your thoughts on. One of them was WM on IG and YouTube. Maybe that's William. No. But what do you guys think about Palpatine coming back for Episode 9?
You've been searching for a life greater than that of an ordinary Jedi. A life of
I have mixed feelings, I like to see Ian McDiarmid doing his thing again, but I feel like it was just kind of, it all came together in sort of surprise sort of way. His fingernails were disgusting too.
Yeah. I don't necessarily have strong opinions of it either way. I didn't see it coming that Rey was Palpatine, but then I, wasn't necessarily surprised once I found out.
wisdom,
He's just really creepy looking in Episode 9.
Yeah, I think that what they did with the set design for his Sith generational throne room and all that stuff was really cool, and the arm that he was attached to, and that stuff was really fun. He looked like GLaDOS from Portal, which I thought was great. And also, any chance to give Ian McDiarmid to be able to let him chew the scenery, it's always fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
I think one thing that the sequel trilogy did do a really good job of was giving a bunch of like beloved characters or beloved actors from the original trilogy a chance to kind of have a victory lap and just get to really, revisit those characters. We got Carrie, we got Mark, we got Billy D, we got Ian McDiarmid. It's just Frank Oz popped up. It was, it was a lot of familiar faces, and including Ian McDiarmid's terrifying grimace.
Simi. Familiar.
Well, again, now that we have Grievous on screen, I said earlier, Matthew Wood is just one of the nicest guys, and McDiarmid the same. I mean, it's just funny how some of the just the most evil villains are played by some of the nicest people.
I think one of my favorite bits of Star Wars trivia is like Carrie Fisher felt horrible about that line where she has to tell Peter Cushing that, I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board, because apparently he actually smelled like lavender. He was like just very polite and pleasant. And...
You know who is truly one of the nicest guys in Star Wars is Boba Fett.
Daniel Logan?
Well, no, Daniel Logan, but forgive my
Jeremy Bullock.
brain. Jeremy Bullock. I got to do Star Wars weekends with him for several years, and you want to talk about just a class act, just a true gentleman, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
I am a huge Boba Fett fan. I have like a pile of Boba Fett stuff behind me, but I am so bummed because he announced that he's like done doing conventions, like he's officially formally retired, and I never got a chance to meet him or anything or get him to sign stuff. So,
oh man,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll pop up or something. But
A Sith Lord? Yes, the one we've been looking for.
just had the so uncivilized moment, which is classic Obi-Wan.
Yeah, him taking out Grievous and also being like having to sort of like wipe his hands afterwards. Just like
That's his like equivalent to an Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liner. That's the closest he's gonna get. It's great.
I need my help if you're going to arrest her. For your own good, stay out of this affair. I sense a great deal of confusion in you, young Skywalker. There is much fear that clouds your judgment.
I wonder how many times Tamura Morrison appears in this movie, because they used his face for every single clone. If you went through and like counted, like how many times does his face pop up? That would be. Is that the most time one person has been in a movie?
Oh,
He's being John Malkoviching it.
Yeah, right.
He's all over.
that would be a good trivia.
the only thing that might rival it is the Tim Burton Willy Wonka movie from a handful of years ago, because all of the Oompa Loompas were the same. And now, man, there were tons of them.
Yeah, but I don't want to rewatch that movie.
No, that's fair. This is a cool little scene here. Just how atmospheric
Nice moment.
this bit gets. Yeah.
In this room that we've always seen full of the Senate, to have that empty and have that take that moment. That's a nice choice. Sorry, not the Jedi, it's Senate, the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful scene.
The music is not like this. This cue doesn't show up anywhere else. Thinking real hard.
I know.
This, like, if Star Wars used licensed songs, this would have like a real heartfelt, pop rock song, like something just real, like a City of Angels Goo Goo Dolls song,
Yeah.
And thankfully, it does not have licensed songs.
This is this was 2005, right? So maybe we could get like Creed in there.
Yeah.
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 Man, I forgot about so many of these scenes.
I really like that cruiser design. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, what is that? Is that like Anakin's like personal car? Like,
it must be. He's got like a little it kind of looks like a little like luxury, like almost like a 2-seater Porsche sort of deal.
it's like, yeah, he's got a Miata that Padme bought him.
It's his Miata.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh,
This is good. I think it's fair to say that the prequel's kind of painted with a fairly broad brush, but we talked about Ian McDiarmid and just how much he's enjoying everything that he gets to do.
No.
Are you guys a little bummed out by how easily those first two guys went?
yeah.
Yeah, that was what, Eth Koth and Stacey Tin, and then Kit Fisto just boom.
Well, especially the first two guys,
yeah.
like they were just surprised.
Yeah.
And like the jump and spin that Palpatine did was quite impressive.
It was a long developing stab that got the first guy, which is what kind of bums me out. But I also love
So one of my
story of Samuel L. Jackson's purple lightsaber and how he just asked for a purple lightsaber.
He insisted until he got it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love
one of my
the
favorite
purple
tidbits
lightsaber.
is apparently the character, like the name Palpatine was meant, because that wasn't used until, or if it was mostly associated with the prequels, but the whole idea of Senator Palpatine was, I think, a nod to Senator Palantine in Taxi Driver, who's like kind of shady, and the whole idea of having the lightsaber pop out of his sleeve is like totally the Taxi Driver thing.
Very true.
I think that's legit. I read that online somewhere, and I don't quote me on it, but
Well, that's one of my favorite things about Star Wars names. Sometimes you think it has this deep meaning, and it really doesn't. It could be just like a name that's inspired by somebody on the crew. Or once I got to voice a droid in Clone Wars, and the name was K2B4, and it's because somebody on the crew was a big Kobe Bryant fan. So it was Kobe Bryant 24, KB24.
We watched Rogue One with Gary Whitta and Chris Weitz a while back, and they had some similar stories. Like, there's whole Reddit threads about what this call sign means, but actually it's just my son's initials and his birthday.
Yeah.
Like,
There's that whole race of aliens that are named after Beastie Boys Beastie Boys songs.
Yep, because JJ's a big Beastie Boys guy.
Yeah.
There's Ilko Munica, and
it's got to be fun to be able to name stuff like that. But right here, we're getting like pure, uncut McDiarmid.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just so good. This has got to be one of my favorite. The unlimited power coming.
Oh yeah, that's.
He must stand trial. He has control of the Senate and the courts.
Just
He's too dangerous to be left alive. I'm too weak.
what a worm.
Yeah.
He must live. Please don't. I need him. Please don't. No.
Oh.
Where's that lightsaber go?
Oh.
He's evil and he loves it.
I mean, he's He's into it. He probably didn't have time to think of a cooler thing to say. It's fine.
Do we think Mace maybe survives? If Darth Maul can be cut in half and come back for, do we think Mace is still out there?
I mean, it's Star Wars. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
I would be incredibly happy to see Sam Jackson in his current state show up in, with a robotic arm in hiding and like a beard. I'd be okay with that.
Just a whole series about him looking for his purple lights.
Just on the bottom level, like 40 stories below, just walking around, just like searching like a lost contact, And that's the series. But no, I actually genuinely would love to see him. Love to see him back. Get a robot hand on him. I think
also, like, you don't see him land. Like, what if he just lands on somebody's windshield and there's just like, there's some poor boffin just driving home from work and just Sam Jackson just plows into the windshield. It's like, I need to get to a hospital.
Take me to a bacta tank now.
It really is possible. I'm surprised there's not more discussions about that.
It's all made up. It's all stories. Like
the Emperor came back. If the Emperor came back, literally anybody can. I would love to know how many times they said Darth Vader, and in how many different reads, different combinations of emphasis that he did there. Because, like, that's the name, right? Like, the whole story of the prequels is Anakin becoming Darth Vader. Let me get this more evil rope. How's David doing? What did he think of Unlimited Power?
What did you think of the unlimited power part? He's into it. He's into it.
Good.
David's he's like, a lot of things are now making sense. Oh my gosh.
So we're sneaking up on the big, what has become one of the biggest moments in all of Star Wars, which is Order 66 here. And we've gotten a lot of questions from people. There's one, for example, Kanji Chris on Twitter has asked, if Order 66 hadn't taken place, where do you guys think your characters would have ended?
Ooh. Well, for Ahsoka, I think Ahsoka was actually in a good place for surviving Order 66 because she wasn't anywhere near the Jedi or the clones. So she actually put herself right back into the action, by helping them find Darth Maul. And now we see how everything unfolded and how she escaped. But I said it, at the end of season 5, her walking away from the Jedi Order it saved her life.
Cal was in training. He was still a Padawan. So he would have just led a normal Jedi life within the Republic. He would have probably been analogous to someone like Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan or someone like that, where he became a Jedi Knight and received formal training and had a proper master-apprentice relationship, as opposed to what he did, where truncated and taken. Also, this shot, that's iconic. Come on, how cool is this?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Do you think the longer the robe is, the more evil the wearer becomes, or do you?
That's a great question.
There's got to be a guideline. There's got to be something that costume designers think about. Well, he's evil, so the robe needs to be longer and more billowy.
I like that that Sidious has this like Clark Kent thing going on where he pulls his hood up and he's like, "It's me, Darth Sidious." It's like, okay, we never recognized you when you were wearing your hoodie.
Do you think Palpatine saw Anakin put the hood up and he was kind of like, my thing? Why is he taking my thing from me? Like, I'm the hood guy.
Can't he get like a hat or something? This is not fair.
How different would Star Wars have been if Palpatine's thing were fancy?
Oh, yeah.
Helmets, helmets are kind of like hats with masks attached to them.
There's a lot of great helmets in Star Wars. There are some terrible hats.
Watto's got a good hat.
It's okay. It's kind of like a weird pork pie.
It is. It looks like one of those like World War I helmets that they wore in the trenches.
So I think this.
Oh no.
And so Order 66 is happening here. And this is one thing that I think the Clone Wars really cemented was like, I feel I'm more okay with what happened between Commander Cody and Obi-Wan there. Like, because now we know that it was sort of programmed into the clone.
Yeah. It's going down now. So I have an Order 66 story. When Clone Wars was canceled at the end of season 5, it wasn't planned, obviously. We were still in the middle of making more episodes, more seasons. And it was really sad. I mean, it was a very sad thing for the cast and crew. And we all went up to San Francisco for, oh man, it's hard to watch. We all went up to San Francisco.
That one was a little violent.
Yeah, that was. We all went up to San Francisco for a series wrap party, which was, not a thing at all. And at the end of the party, we were all, we weren't ready to go home, and we were all hungry, and so we decided to go to In-N-Out Burger. And it was the cast and Dave Filoni, and Dave said, he's like, "Hey, I got this. I'll pick up the bill." And so we were all on one bill, and at In-N-Out Burger, they give you an order number. Well, I kid you not, no one recognized us, but our cast order for our In-N-Out Burger order was Order 66. And that was our final meal as a cast, before the series ended. So how appropriate for our final meal for the Clone Wars to be Order 66.
That's incredible.
That is, oh man.
It was just by chance too.
At least you got In-N-Out. That's more than these guys got.
I know. Oh. I love Yoda.
Yeah, I love that moment that we had with Yoda, where when Order 66 is being executed, he feels the weight of everyone across the galaxy, experiencing pain and all of that and death. And I think that's what is like my favorite thing about Yoda as a character is like his power is he is a master empath, and he is emotionally intelligent, like across time and across everyone, across the universe. And like that moment to me speaks volumes because he's just feeling the weight of the repercussions of what's happened. It's a quick moment, but it's something that I really like for that character.
So have you guys, watching Order 66 play out now, like, and in terms of how your thoughts on this movie have changed, or have they changed from the first time you saw the movie to now after you, obviously with Siege of Mandalore and with Fallen Order, like, now that you've done that work and been a part of Order 66 kind of, on either side of it, does watching this movie, is a different experience for you now?
Yeah, definitely. This sequence is integral to the plot of our game, and we had so many conversations about what are the ramifications of this happening for the character of Cal, and what would it mean for him going forward. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to intrinsically always have an emotional attachment to it now.
Yeah, I mean, it makes this movie so much more heartbreaking for me. You know, getting to know these characters. I mean, in the Clone Wars, we really get to see the Anakin, the hero, and you know, we become attached to all of these Jedi and Obi-Wan, and now we know the relationships between them, and um, it's heartbreaking. I'm feeling so much more for the characters now watching these scenes than I ever did before. And the clones, my gosh, the clones. Getting to know the clones the way we did.
It's such a sweet little goodbye between Yoda and Chewbacca.
Yeah. Chewbacca.
That's my favorite part about Oh, go ahead.
Like Luke going to train with Yoda is such a weird thing to do in the context of the original trilogy, and like I feel like it would never even come up. Like, not that he can fully understand Chewbacca, but like if he showed up on Cloud City, they've got like way bigger things to worry about. But nobody's like, "Hey Luke, where were you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was training with this guy named Yoda in a swamp," and like Chewbacca would be like, "No way, small world! I totally know him," but like,
small galaxy, can't believe it.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Stranger things have happened.
I do love the interior of the ship. As we start to get closer to A New Hope, and some of that set design kind of comes back. Here's a question. Galactic Noodle 2020 asks. I want to ask Cameron and Ashley to debate who had the worst Order 66 experience, Cal or Ahsoka. It's important that we make it a debate to Galactic Noodle. So, Cameron, you're first up.
The great thing about trauma is you're supposed to use it as a medal to lord it over other people and not disrespect the things that they go through. So I think that would be great for Cal. No, I don't know. I mean, I think everyone has it pretty raw for Order 66. It's pretty awful all around. If you were living in that universe and experienced a mass genocide of a people, I think that no one is going to be having a fun time within that.
It doesn't need to be a contest necessarily.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Ashley here, but
yeah. Definitely no contest here. I think Ahsoka, it just keeps getting worse and worse. But, as we hear in episode 9, and the advice she gives to Rey is, they say, let the light guide you as it guided us. I think even as awful as it got, Ahsoka just continued to find hope somewhere in the middle of complete darkness. She just continued to find hope. So I think that's what got her through until the end. I mean, it's really what's heartbreaking for me is when she walks away and we see that memorial scene of like the graveyard of all the clones' helmets. I'd love to see a scene of her where her mental state is then, because I think she's running on pure adrenaline, just trying to survive Order 66, and I don't think she fully understands what's going on until it's over. So I'd love to see that, where, mentally she is at the end of it all.
You brought up the cameo in episode 9. There's been a handful of questions that have popped up. Richard Weisenthal, for one, who's watching on IGN and YouTube, wants to know, how much did the episode 9 crew tell you when they asked you to record Ahsoka's voice for that? How much did they let you in on?
Oh, very little. Very little. I got to go into Bad Robot and record that scene, and I was directed by J.J. Abrams, and he couldn't have been nicer, but I didn't get very much. He told me what I needed to know. He said that a lead character, I didn't even know it was Rey, but I assumed it was Rey, was looking up near death And, then the past Jedi are coming to give her advice. And that's all I knew. I didn't know how, she got there. I knew nothing surrounding it. So, and that's usually how it works. I feel like in the Star Wars universe, you're on a need to know basis. So they tell you what you need to know to get the performance, and then that's it.
I feel like that's surprisingly forthcoming, given what I've heard about, keeping spoilers on lockdown. Like, to tell you that a lead character was near death, that's a lot right there.
Surprisingly, it wasn't just like, here's 6 words. I need you to say them in every way that you possibly can, and we'll make it work on the.
That's true. That's true. But after signing your life away, and Cameron, I'm sure you've done the same. You sign your life away in the future lives of all of your children in NDAs. When you work in the Star Wars universe, they put the fear of death in you, so you keep secrets. Oh, here we go.
When I was cast, I had to keep that a secret for well over a year, and that was something that was sort of I'd be working on this thing for over the course of I think 7 months or something, and friends would ask me where are you disappearing to? I just have to be I'm just doing something. I don't know. I'm gonna be going away and doing.
I'm just doing adult films and infomercials. You gotta pay the bills somehow.
I think that's probably what they assumed.
Can I just be mysterious without all these questions?
That's how it was when I was first cast as Ahsoka. We started recording in early 2006. And actually, it was February 2006, and it didn't come out until August of 2008. So I couldn't tell anyone. Luckily, after a year, I was able to tell David, that who I was playing. But I couldn't tell anyone else until it came out. So it's definitely a hard secret to keep.
That's amazing. I don't know that. So yeah, you were attached to Star Wars less than a year after this movie came out.
It cut out for a second. But yeah, I mean, it was quite shocking because I think, when I got the call, we thought George Lucas was done making Star Wars. I mean, it kind of caught everyone by surprise.
Just sort of following up on the episode 9 and talking about the direction you got is all of the Jedi from the past are here to give inspiration to this character. There is some debate among fans, and I just wondering what you consider. Do you consider Ahsoka Tano to be a Jedi?
I mean, no, I don't, because she walked away and she was very definitive about that choice. But I think the guidelines, being a Jedi at its core and what that means is what Ahsoka, I think she always wants to. She lives by those rules, and in many ways, whereas the other Jedi strayed from it, she didn't. And what she was taught, she truly wanted to be what at its core the Jedi preached what they wanted to be. So I think being a Jedi is always going to be with Ahsoka. She truly, I feel like Ahsoka just wants to do good and represents the light side of the Force, in my opinion. And it'll always be with her, but, she wouldn't call herself a Jedi. And I love the fact, she gets the white lightsabers because she, from how it's described to me, she considers herself neutral. I love that. I think she becomes her own thing, which I love.
This is another when you step back from it. Just bodies strewn across that much floor is a pretty macabre shot for Star Wars. Yeah. This is one of those it's Star Wars, and but then that giant wide shot with just bodies littered across the this hallway. It's some dark stuff.
Yeah.
that's something that I always actually really appreciated about Star Wars is it's talking about pretty dark things. I mean, I think it's, it's not a secret that the original trilogy was using a lot of imagery from World War II, and all of that entails, and ultimately a lot of these stories are metaphors for corruption, authoritarianism, rebellion, and what that looks like, and that has a lot of darker aspects, but being able to put on a face of it that is relatable to audiences of all ages, and also to still put adventure and fun into that story to make some of this stuff more palatable for a larger audience, I think is really unique. And to be able to have these darker themes to coincide with the fun and adventure aspects, I think is something that makes Star Wars really great.
Definitely. And, I love, and this even goes back to, Walt Disney and, some of the, the darker moments in the Disney movies, especially with kids, they didn't shy away from it. I mean, Bambi's mom is being killed within the first, couple minutes of the film. And, that's evident in Star Wars as well. Cameron, you're exactly right with how serious it gets and how heavy it gets. But, there's so many wonderful lessons in these movies. And, I love that families watch these Star Wars movies together, and that, parents have such an incredible opportunity to teach these lessons to kids and, their Padawans and the next generation. I feel like, it's not too heavy for kids. Like, these are lessons they should be learning. They should be learning about lessons of hope and good overcoming evil. And, I definitely think there's an age limit. I know a lot of parents have held off with episode 3 with Revenge of the Sith before they show it to their kids. But
episode 3 was the first one that was PG-13, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
It was. I think
on account of the child.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Some people also thought that the lizard that Obi-Wan rides was too suggestive, so that was,
There's a big fight with the MPAA.
No, I mean, like, going back to the sort of the timelessness and the I don't know, generational accessibility of Star Wars. Like, that's what Lucas was trying to do. Like, it was the monomyth. He was, reading a bunch of Joseph Campbell and digging into the idea of these archetypes that are powerful and timeless. And we see people have like really emotional responses to things happening in Star Wars, and it's understandable because like it's metaphysical. It borders on religious iconography. Like, it's tapping into some sort of timeless, epic, mythological stuff that really does it cuts people deep. So
sure, not only spiritualism, but war, family, themes that are ultimately some of these unfortunately universal, and that makes it also removed from any specific time period, and allows us to it's such a great backdrop as well to be able to tell so many stories within it. Something that is this epic in scale enables writers to be able to have wiggle room within that, and that's something that I love so much about the Clone Wars and a lot of these other stuff as well, is to be able to complicate these stories and make them less binary in dark side or light side, and to have characters like Ahsoka who are walking their own path. Yeah, I just think it's something amazing that we have these universal themes that can be transferred to so many different stories within it.
Yeah, we never had the opportunity to work directly with George Lucas because he works up in San Francisco and we always recorded in LA. But Dave Filoni worked directly with George, and one thing that was really big with George Lucas is he would give Dave like homework lists of movies to watch, classic movies that he would pull from, and a lot of themes, or not necessarily pull from, but he was inspired by. And, Dave would often pass on that homework list to us. But it's just, it's incredible. There's such a long list of films that, that George Lucas recommends, anyone he works with, to go and watch. So when he, gives reference to a certain film, you have to know it. You have to know what he's referencing, and that'd be a cool list. I wish they would release that publicly, like George Lucas's, library list of recommended watching.
I do want to shout out Matt Martin, who works for Lucasfilm. He did a series at the cinema chain Alamo Draft House, and he had it was cinema that inspired Star Wars, and he
cool.
did like a showing of 6 different movies. There was like Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress and Casablanca and The Searchers, the John Wayne movie, and a few others. And you definitely could see the themes and the stuff that had transferred from classic films into modern movies. I mean, there's specific shots and moments from those films that are pretty much one for one, which I think is amazing. It's I love how not only for the films but also a lot of the shows too, like Mandalorian, the way that they have introduced a lot of Western imagery and iconography, I think is really unique. And to be able to kind of twist classic genres and to put that into the fold and the scope of it, I think is it's really cool.
Yeah, Cameron, if I can have you scoot a little closer to your mic again.
Oh, sure. Is the volume low?
Yeah, you were just a touch low for that. Was there anything like that you guys talked about while making Fallen Order in terms of touchstones like that?
Sure. I mean, I know that initially for Cal, they were thinking of going with a Clint Eastwood sort of like wanderer, spaghetti Western wanderer. And ultimately, we decided that was a bit, it wasn't the right point of access for Cal for a story so early for him, but they definitely incorporated some of that kind of ragtag group of outsiders banding together, very classic Western stuff. Also, Cal wears ponchos, which is very Clint Eastwood.
Very Jedi with no name.
Exactly. But I mean, there was a lot of references to different films during the discussion, and a lot of times from scene to scene, we would be looking at these moments and not only referencing Star Wars moments, but also other stuff to be like, what is this analogous to? What can we find here? And to be able to, we're all a fan of this stuff, and to be able to kind of experiment with it and find stuff that feels genuine and kind of put our own passions, our own little love letters within the story, I think was important to us.
Here's a question. Let's get to this question real quick before we start diving into this lightsaber battle that wraps up the movie here. But Maya Blazensk, who's watching on IGN's YouTube, wants to know. This is a good question. What would a meeting between Cal and Ahsoka look like?
Oh,
It probably wouldn't be over Discord.
Probably it would be a hollow Zoom.
Yeah, that's like a Kiadi Mundi joint right there, just Skyping in.
I mean, they're slightly different time periods. So, I mean, realistically, I don't know what their interaction would be within the timeline, but characterization, I feel like they have a lot in common. They sort of both aren't like tied to Jedi belief systems. I think that they both bend the rules a bit, and they kind of walk to the beat of their own drum. And I think that ultimately it would be interesting to see how they would interact with each other. I don't know if two forces of personality would get along, or if they would butt heads, or what the dynamic would be.
What's the? Forgive me, I should know this, but what's the time period from Order 66?
So Fallen Order takes place 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. So
yeah, okay. What's really interesting is I don't know, because that's a time period I would love more Ahsoka stories. I really don't know what happens to her between, we get a little bit in the Ahsoka novel, but I don't know what happens to her between, Order 66 and when she shows up in Rebels. But, we do see in Rebels that, she's been working with Bail Organa and, helping start the rebellion. And I think Ahsoka, at the end of the day, as we hear her say in the 7th season, she says, when I see people in need, I help them, no matter what. I guess it's just who I am. She would help. And I think that's just in her nature. If she sees someone in need, she helps them. And so I think it would be a positive meeting between the two of them. Whether they, continued on together in some way, I don't know. But I think it's just in Ahsoka's nature. It would be a positive thing.
Gentlemen, start your fan fiction.
I know. I get that question at least like once a day. Is Ahsoka going to be in Jedi Fallen Order too?
Have you gotten it yet today? Do we need to ask it?
I've gotten it several times a day. I can tell you I haven't recorded anything, but I would always be up for it. That's for sure.
If we are to say anything more, we might get a trank dart in our neck. And
understood. They'll come. Lucasfilm people will come take my Boba Fett helmet back if I let you.
But I think that there are a number of characters, that they exist in the same time period, and it's always cool to imagine what it would be like if they would cross paths. There's a few characters that I have a definite, interest in what it would be like for Cal to interact with them.
That's a cool thing with, Star Wars is connected now. How all the stories, connect. That's what makes it so fun. To do our own fan fiction with this, because there is a world. I mean, I remember when Star Wars Rebels was going on, there was so much talk of, well, there is a world where Ahsoka and Kanan would have known each other in the Jedi Temple. How well they knew each other, we don't know, but yeah, sure, they could have been there at the same time. Oh, here we go.
I mean, that's the cool thing with Star Wars. It's because of the generational nature. People have been raised with these movies for 40 years at this point, and ultimately the people writing these films are fans, and it's fiction. So ultimately these stories are someone's personal collaborative fan fiction that simply becomes official. And I think that's amazing, the fact that there are fans that are writing this that are like, man, what would it be like if these characters interacted? What would it be like if we explored this facet of this universe? So I think that's really cool.
Well, it's funny, if you go back and look, when we had the premiere of our Clone Wars movie back in 2008, it was met with mixed reviews at times. Oh, this seems crazy. And at our premiere, it wasn't this huge star-studded event, but J.J. Abrams and his family were there. And, he's been such a huge fan. And to your point, Cameron, it's like, to see how much he's loved Star Wars, and that he brought his family to the premiere of the Clone Wars. And then all these years later to see, what he's done and how he's contributed to the Star Wars universe is pretty cool to see. It's cool to see how much people love and respect this universe.
Yeah, as we're getting into these two fight scenes here, I really like the sort of kind of opposite nature of it. You got these two guys here that are almost like beyond lightsabers at this point. It's like
Yeah.
we don't necessarily need lightsabers, and then the two guys, Obi-Wan and Anakin, are just going at each other with those with the lightsabers. So it's fun to see sort of both sides of the of the Force
Also,
cross-cut
like,
like this.
there's like occasional just really funny slapstick in this. That was one instance. I think the Grievous scuttle we saw earlier was like another, where it's just in the midst of this direly serious scene, there's also just like a little bit of like kind of Buster Keaton, you know?
A dude going ass over tea kettle over a chick.
Yeah, I love this scene.
So apparently they never had anything on set. They had like an old Yoda puppet that they used as kind of a stand-in for a lot of the Yoda scenes, and the rest was sort of, I imagine there was somebody doing the blocking for him, but that kind of like acting against entirely CGI character is always a little bit tricky. Cameron, what did you have for BD1? Like, what was there, like just a box there, or like a person, or?
We actually had a actor named Gideon Emery. He's a quite an established motion capture and voice actor on his own right, but he had a 3D printed version of BD1 that he was holding, and he actually put them around the space, and we had like a little like nose whistle for him that he would be able to voice him. And we actually had, every time the BD1 was on screen, he was moving the puppet around the space and interacting with me, and I was acting across from him, because we tried it. We did a test shoot with BD1. That was one of the very first things that we shot, and we just had him, like just a little beanbag on the floor, and then I was just kind of acting the space, and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I just felt like it would be better. BD1 is such an integral character for him to be interacting with. It, it's kind of like his best friend throughout the story, and the only way I felt like it would work is if I was actually acting across from another actor for those scenes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, no, like one of my buddies, I think he started playing Fallen Order before I got a chance to get into it, and I have a little, like, a annoying little Pomeranian dog who I love dearly, who's like kind of like BD1, and he pitched it as like, dude, you're gonna love this. This is like, this droid is like having a little Pomeranian you hang out with. And what I really loved with your character was how you'd go like in sort of the parts where you're interacting with other humans. There's always this sort of like, you sort of kind of put on airs as like a tough hidden Jedi or whatever. But when you're out having adventures, you're just like, it was like being a kid with his dog,
Yeah, exactly.
Getting towards the end of the movie, and Max knocking over Can.
Yeah. It's a long movie.
What's been happening out of frame there?
I do really enjoy this scene where they're just kind of casually chucking these things at each other.
This scene is epic.
We get to talk to... Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have to give a shout out to Frank Oz too. It's amazing to see how much he just respects being the voice of Yoda, and how serious he is about it.
If you want to completely like flip this scene on its ass, go watch Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which Frank Oz directed, and which features Ian McDiarmid as a kind of snooty butler.
No way.
Yeah, and I think it came out, I want to say 85 or so, but it's Ian McDiarmid's, and just he's in the background, just he's very deadpan, and the idea of that he and Frank Oz had a working relationship long before that whole scene.
Yeah.
Now I'm just imagining Yoda and the Emperor between takes, just hanging out talking about Dirty Rotten Scoundrel.
Have you guys seen the sets or the miniatures they used to make Mustafar?
No.
I think they're the most impressive Star Wars miniatures they did. They had an entire illuminated lava river, and it was entirely shot in, like, not the fight scenes, but it was a mix of live action footage of a volcano erupting, because they shot some of these scenes in Italy, and I think it was Mount Etna was erupting at the same time. So they were just like, yeah, let's take a camera up there and shoot some of that. But then they made this insane, like, illuminated glowing ooze river, and they were shooting, miniature camera shots over it. And there's pictures where I would say the river is probably like maybe 2 or 3 feet wide, and there's people looming over it with cameras. But yeah, they're just they're fighting on a big old action figure playset.
That's cool.
This whole fight sequence too is an exercise in, like, where are you gonna go? Like, just they put themselves in more and more precarious situations as they're literally tearing this place apart.
Some would say the floor is lava.
Jumping from couch to couch with lightsaber.
I will say the miniature, or the actual Death Star, I've seen in the archives. They have the actual Death Star, and it's impressive. I mean, it was probably like 4 or 5 feet tall by 5 feet wide, and the detail in it is just, it's crazy. Probably my favorite, like, movie prop I've ever seen.
That is a moment right there with Yoda admitting that he failed. Like, just seeing Yoda lose, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole theme of the prequels, is like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And it's, you see Qui-Gon being like, this kid should be trained, it's going to be great. And then, whoops. And then, Yoda being like, I guess well begun the Clone Wars have, yeah.
All this stuff looks really good still. I'm a fan of practical effects and the usage of that and utilization of that. But something that Star Wars has always been a pioneer in is not only practical effects like miniatures, but also compositing and green screen and all of the different tricks of the trade and being able to put them together and blend them. And it is really impressive how these movies were doing stuff that a lot of movies weren't willing to do yet, like put fully CG characters on screen next to live action characters. Like, that was bold. Like, ultimately, I'm more of a fan of puppet Yoda than I am CG Yoda. But by the third film, they were able to refine and hone the process and get it to a point where this stuff looks really solid. Like, even now, 15 years later, and I mean, we wouldn't have, I think, a lot of stuff if it wasn't for filmmakers taking chances like this. I don't think that we would be able to have, like, Baby Groot or Baby Yoda or, that kind of stuff, fully CG characters interacting, unless you have people willing to take that risk.
No, totally. Like, I feel like Star Wars has always been like this weird pairing of, like, timeless monomyth, but also here's a cutting edge tech demo of what we can do with cinematic, special effects. And the prequels, honestly, like, they're so ambitious, and they're so, like, they're trying to do so many new things at the same time. And, like, everyone's like, well, Jar Jar was annoying. It's like, oh my God, like, why just like, can you realize that was performance capture without a mocap suit, like, without ping pong balls on a green screen? They were basically just CGI rotoscoping Ahmed Best. I mean, I was guilty of this. I was like, there's too much CG in the prequels. And then, like, years later, I was looking at, like, making of stuff, and I'm like, oh no, they made a miniature lava river. I'm stupid. This is like, and I mean, it's, oh man. Yeah, this is probably why it's PG-13 a little bit.
this is brutal.
There's actually supposedly Lucas wanted to get a little gnarlier with it, a little grislier with him getting burned up. And getting his remaining arm and both legs chopped off, and then getting torched completely. Dark enough.
This scene's just heartbreaking.
I remember watching this in theaters. I do remember this moment. I was pretty young at the time, and when Anakin burst into flame, going, "Oh, we're able to do that with these characters? That's all right. All right, cool." I was on board.
Yeah, that's
yeah, close up on flaming.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan can't even look.
It's also like I mean, Obi-Wan's really trying his best, but he just leaves. Like, does he that's either inhumane or it's reckless. Like, which one?
But I guess that is one of Obi-Wan's big mistakes, and sort of it makes sense for his characterization in A New Hope. He acknowledges a lot of the things that he didn't do correctly throughout the original trilogy. So one could say that was one of his moments of fault.
No, I mean he and Yoda say like we have failed in within minutes of each other. Yeah. Like they're fully aware, like, oh, everything's gone completely sideways. We're screwed here. So like, why wouldn't they go into seclusion and just become hermits?
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't talk about that enough. I mean, how powerful is it to have these characters that people look up to so much just openly say, I failed? You don't think about it, but I just had a conversation with my 4-year-old nephew the other day about failure. And just, he's at the age where it's like, he can't fail. It's the worst thing. And I'm like, no, you have to fail. You have to. And that's what makes these movies so powerful, especially for kids, to look up to Yoda and have Yoda say, I failed. But, thank goodness we have the original trilogy too, to see ultimately how it plays out.
I just want to call out too how cool that moment is, that that synthetic hand, the one thing that was sort of left of him and that he gained in the last movie, was the thing that he's able to use to pull himself out of that situation. Like that's a nice little touch, and great foreshadowing for what happens next with the character too.
All that's left of him at that point. He's more machine now than man.
He's more machine than man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ashley, watching this scene in particular, with like the dynamic that Ahsoka had with Anakin for years on the Clone Wars, and revisiting this movie, after the Clone Wars wrapped up, it's like seeing this happen to him it's pretty rough.
Yeah, I feel like I keep saying this word over and over again, but it's heartbreaking. I really got to know the hero, Anakin Skywalker. And, I say that I do recommend, when people ask, in what order they should watch the films now, I do recommend that they watch the Clone Wars in between episode 2 and episode 3, because it makes this fall of Anakin Skywalker so much more heartbreaking. I mean, Ahsoka couldn't bear it. Ahsoka wouldn't be able to walk away. Like if she saw Anakin there on fire.
Yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan, like he kind of got like a dud of an instructor, He, like, Qui-Gon was like, yeah, we're gonna train this kid, and then they were like, oh no, he got I guess, yeah, sure, you can be a Jedi Master, go for it, go. He's in over his head. He's like Obi-Wan's kind of like like a teen. I'm sorry, I'm just playing like defense force for Obi-Wan here. Like he was in over his head. He's like, okay, the kid's on fire. He's half cyborg. I gotta bounce. Like this is too much.
Even when they're appointing Qui-Gon is trying to argue I can mentor Anakin. Obi-Wan is ready, and the council goes, I'm not really sure that Obi-Wan is ready. And he goes, you think I'm ready? And like there's even kind of the implication that maybe he wasn't quite ready to become a Jedi Knight at the time that he did, but his master was killed.
Well, there's also the conversation that Anakin and Yoda had earlier in the movie that David liked so much, which was, the be prepared to let go, or don't fear letting go of the things that you care about. The quote that none of us can read exactly, but the idea of which sort of applies to what Obi-Wan was going through right there. Like he as a Jedi, like that's part of the Jedi thing, for better or worse. Like you can't possess things like that.
Yeah, is it train yourself to let go of the things you fear to lose?
That sounds as close as we've got.
Yeah. And that's something we talked about a lot throughout the Clone Wars, is obviously attachments and the difference between Obi-Wan and Anakin and Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan and his relationship with the Duchess Satine versus Anakin and his relationship with Padme. And I think that's one thing that made Ahsoka so powerful, is that she was kind of a hybrid of all the Jedi. She got to learn from all of them. Oh.
Just a reminder, guys, we're getting close to all yelling no.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing do not want.
Oh, do not. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me.
Of course.
You get that first. Is there a sound more iconic than that?
I don't think
a piece of sound design in all of film.
RoboCop walking.
It's close.
I think I still might give it to Vader on that one.
I might give it to Vader. I'm willing to take
a lot
it
of
serious.
iconic sound from Star Wars.
Well, lightsaber igniting.
Lightsabers, yeah.
Yoda going. I'm so excited.
Lord Vader, can you hear me?
I do like that the whole thing that the Emperor used to turn him to the dark side was keeping Padme alive. And here he's just kind of like, look, about that.
Safe. Is she all right? It seems in your anger, you killed her.
I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it.
Everybody get your best Vader voices ready.
Do not run.
All right.
Right.
That was worth it.
Safe. The children must be kept.
That scene though of Darth Vader, breaking away from the table, like as Frankenstein's monster as that was, and the no.
My wife and I.
How do we feel about that moment in general, like in the context of the whole? Did that work for you? Like the first time Darth Vader really gets a moment.
And what of the boy?
So rewatching it now, like I remember really not liking that in theaters and just being like, that's not Darth Vader. And it's like now I'm like, no, that's still a little bit of Anakin, like he's like loaded up. Like that's like watching somebody who's stepping out of a hospital bed. I mean, literally. And it's, I don't know. I was reading that the the costume was intentionally top heavy to kind of give him those like this awkward baby steps as like a new character, and it's gross. Like, it's weird. He's still like the man and machine sides are still like kind of balanced out, but he hasn't completely, sold out. I don't know.
I agree with you, Max. That scene was completely different for me now. I saw Anakin in that scene, whereas before I didn't see it that same way.
Even in James Earl Jones' performance, like there's more sort of emotion in it than the Darth Vader we're used to.
What? Oh no.
R2 just straight up laughing at the fact that C-3PO is getting his mind.
He's like, Goldie here is a blabbermouth. Reform from Adam.
You're gonna
32
want it
on
for
it.
him.
This is beautiful. This whole shot.
Yeah.
It's also such like a just depressing dichotomy to like the parade celebration at the end of episode 1.
Right.
It's like, no, sorry, you're going to go back the other direction and no one's going to be cheering. Just...
You just forget how dark and sad this movie is. I think that's why I don't go when I need hope, I turn to Star Wars. I don't turn to this movie.
That's right.
I think this is why this is one I haven't watched too many times.
Get a look at the Death Star. I do always feel like he looks uncomfortable crossing his arm.
John Williams' score here is just it's doing all the heavy lifting for these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, little John Williams, never heard it. Here we are, all getting lost in this again because we're listening to that John Williams score, that theme that we've known since 1977.
No, there's that. I mean, the tail end of this movie is such like a just massive series of payoffs of like things alluded to in, Obi-Wan's first sort of monologue in A New Hope. So it's
right.
Cute kid.
Yeah. It's just beautiful. In the skies.
And now we can say maybe this is where Obi-Wan's series starts? Question mark.
I would love that so much.
It would really be something if it opened with him walking away from the farm. Those twin sunsets.
Wow.
The blue text. Well, that is Revenge of the Sith. What do we think, guys? Like Max, you mentioned it once or twice that there's something about rewatching it now that it was a little bit different than from the last time you watched.
I think my favorite thing about sort of how, like, I still haven't seen the entirety of Clone Wars and Rebels. I've seen bits and pieces. I've played Jedi Fallen Order, but I love that we're getting the gap between the prequels and the original trilogy filled out by like other media, and it all kind of weaves together. And we've seen, I think, especially because it's this wonderful mixture of like of computer animation and practical effects, and just it's all, I don't know, it's definitely really cool revisiting this, especially after like Fallen Order and Rogue One, and just seeing those little gaps filled in. I don't know, that's a visually stunning movie, though.
I mean, this was a completely different experience for me now that Clone Wars has ended. And I will say, I love all the Star Wars movies. I've always loved the prequels. But after working closely with Dave Filoni and getting to hear, from him, about everything about the prequels through George Lucas, you have such an appreciation for it. And, as we all shared about, the groundbreaking technology that was in these films. There's so much to appreciate in the prequels. And I feel like every single time I watch them back, I find something that I didn't notice before.
Yeah, I mean, having watched the original trilogy and then now having sat through the prequel trilogy again for just the last few days, being able to see it all within context of each other was really nice. And this is definitely still my favorite of the prequels. I really think that payoff is the right word. This does pay off so many moments in a pretty incredible way. And it is really just exciting, that after watching the original trilogy again and this one, I'm very proud to say that I'm a part of this world. And it's incredible that, we've had the opportunities to be able to tell stories within it.
Well, if you guys don't mind, a few more questions real quick before we wrap up.
Sure.
Here's a question from Sweet Lizzie, who asks, given what Anakin does, what we see him do in this movie, do you think the act of saving his son in Return of the Jedi is enough to redeem?
It's an interesting word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Redemption is a very interesting word because I don't know if it's relevant ultimately whether he's redeemed. I think it's important that no matter how much you might do the wrong thing, you can still choose to do the right thing. I think that's a theme across these movies. One could say the same thing for Kylo Ren. Like, he assists with, the destruction of planets and killing countless people. But ultimately, he still makes the right choice in the end. Does that vindicate him of all the wrong things that he does? No. But within the context of the story, it makes for a very flawed and interesting character. And I think it's that moment is amazing in Return of the Jedi, even more so after you see the awful things that he does. Because even though he is so far into the darkness, there's still always a chance of light within that.
I mean, that's actually what I was going to say, Cameron, is that there's still light in him. As we hear Padme say, there's still good in him. And I think that's what it's about for me. It's not about going back and saying, does, the right that he eventually shows overcome, the bad that he's done. But I think it just provides that hope that ultimately good will overcome evil. And I think after all the evil, good still prevailed. And that's my takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the saying of like there's good in someone, or the idea of there being good and evil being separate concepts from individual characters, it's incredibly, I don't know, reductive and sort of rudimentary to be like, this person is good or this person is evil. It's like there's more to it than that. There's more nuance. There's more.
Well, I mean, so much of what Star Wars is it's about balance. It's about how that light can't exist without the darkness, and that the two are forever intertwined with each other. So, I think that there's also something to be said that not only are there people lined within the dark or the light, but also there's darker light within those characters as well, in different amounts, and it manifests in different ways. But I think that it's nice that we have characters that are complex and sometimes make the right decision, even though they've historically not made the right decision.
Yeah. Here's another question that we got from Twitter. Lucas Carbonatus asked, Ashley, if Luke were to meet Ahsoka, how would that go? That's something I've always wanted to see in like a comic or something.
Well, I will say that's definitely a question for Dave Filoni. But that is a scene that I've always wondered about, and that is a scene that I personally, as a fan, I hope we get to find out that it happened. I'd love to see that scene play out. So I don't write the stories. But I do often request it. I'll drop hints and say, "Hey, did that happen? Can you write that one day?"
We gonna see that at some point.
Yeah.
And then one more for both of you guys. Kyle Steves, who's watching on Cinefix, wants to know where do you hope the Star Wars franchise, will go in the future? What are you looking forward to with the Star Wars franchise?
I mean, I think that there's a thousand different directions that it can go from here. I think it would be really cool to examine some of the Old Republic stuff. I would be interested to know where the story goes beyond Episode 9. I think that there's plenty of pockets of the universe that haven't been explored. I love the Skywalker storyline, but I think that there's so much that can be explored beyond it. And it's interesting to see, these characters, both Jedi and non-Jedi, what they're up to. And I don't know. I think that there's a lot of interesting ideas that are being worked on right now, and I can't wait for them. I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, I hope we get to continue to tell Star Wars through all the different mediums that we have, with film and, television and animation and video games and, books and comics, and now we're getting audio dramas. Like, I hope we continue to get Star Wars on all the different platforms. But my hope is that we just continue to introduce new generations to Star Wars through new stories. I think, we have such an interesting view of Star Wars. I think, Cameron, you'd agree. We feel very lucky, we almost have a front row seat to be on the front lines of Star Wars and getting to meet fans all over the world. You very quickly realize that it's not just another role, being an actor in Star Wars, that Star Wars, as I said earlier, it changes lives. And it's even saving lives. Like, Star Wars is not just a trend for people. It's literally a way. It's something that they turn to in the darkest of times. It's something they turn to make decisions. And it guides people throughout their life. And I hope it continues to do that for generations to come.
That's great. And did we get a thumbs up from David?
Yeah, David. What's your take? Come on over.
We've been at this for a while, so we really only have time for a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Oh, okay. Thumbs up or thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here at Watch from Home Theater. Ashley, Cameron, thanks so much. Max, to a lesser extent, thank you as well. And come back on Thursday. We'll be watching Empire Strikes Back on Thursday night on the 40th anniversary of that movie. So we will see you guys. Thanks, everybody, and good night.
Awesome. Thank you.